Alright, I think I'm going to have a little bit of a rant about this, the toxic soup that the majority of us live in as a general, lamentable rule, prompted by something that occurred in, I guess, my own life recently, that I found out about a few hours ago. Kind of prompted some feelings of sadness and also anger that I haven't felt in relation to this specific topic for some time. I suppose for some time I've been mostly kind of numb to it out of, I guess, pure necessity, by, virtue of the fact that I can't change the situation, that I can't do anything to ultimately remediate the unfathomable degree of toxicity that it is in which we all live, and which a great many people play a very enthusiastic part in perpetuating, believing as they do so that it is just kind of a part of life, something that isn't even questioned in the first place, and something that they don't even identify as toxic. They don't identify these toxic agents as being precisely what they are, and when however many decades it is of them being exposed to this environment which they are themselves playing a significant part in creating, in perpetuating, disease begins to manifest itself, they cry out in despair. Why is this so? Why has this happened to me? Why the fuck have I got some horrific autoimmunities? Why am I shitting blood into the toilet? Why am I all my joints aching? Why have I got cancer? Right? Why have I got Alzheimer's disease? Why am I having seizures? Which is kind of relates to the kind of event that prompted me wanting to record this, which I guess I'll address. It was basically just my parents. They told me that their dog, a dog that I grew up with some significant amount of time, was having seizures this morning. And of course, blah blah blah. Correlation doesn't imply causation, all that fucking shit, but, I can look at the environment that dog has been in for its entire life, an environment that I tried to make better while I could, as much as I could, but to little avail. They did, in terms of diet, due to my persistence, stop feeding it pasta and kibble and all this shit, and ultimately put it on more of a raw, species appropriate diet, but it's still not ideal, still very far from ideal, and that's, of course, the case with all dogs. There was once some other time I was staying with some people, and their dogs, they were feeding all of them kibble, these huskies, right? It was a husky kennel, and they were feeding all their dogs kibble, and I asked why they were feeding them kibble, and they were like, oh, because we can't afford to feed them, the raw food, how expensive that would be. And my thoughts were, I didn't express them at the time, but my thoughts in my mind were, well, you shouldn't fucking have them then, if you can't afford to feed them what they need to eat to be optimally healthy, which, I mean, optimally healthy is just, it's a non-negotiable, right? That's something that I don't think a lot of people understand or appreciate or value, right? They don't value this thing of health, but then still fucking bitch and moan when it's taken away from them in some point later on in life, when disease begins to manifest itself. And, they didn't make the necessary investment while they were able to, and now they're paying the price for that. But sure, they can do what they like, right? But it becomes an issue when it's, when their bad decisions, irresponsible, dumb decisions basically begin to impact others. That's why I have an issue with the dog, and it's why I have an issue with other things that people do just in general that contaminate the environment. Spraying fucking Roundup, which is glyphosate, in case you don't know, familiar with the brand name, weed killer in their gardens, or, which runs into the water supply and then contaminates the water that everyone fucking is forced to drink because it's so difficult to get spring water. And even if you can get spring water from the shop, it's in a fucking plastic bottle, which, all the fucking chemicals from the plastic leach into the water, microplastics and so on, that then contaminate your body. And, I mean, a lot of people think I'm the one that's probably being a bitch to some extent, right? That I'm some sort of hypochondriac, or I have this kind of unrealistic ideal for health that's unachievable. But I mean, the way that I see it is that it's basically our birthright, right? To be healthy, to be functioning in an optimal fashion. But that is basically impossible to... it would be something that would just be accomplished by way of simply living, right, outside of industrialized modern societies. It would be simply what one was. But when one is ensconced against their will, essentially, within these industrialized modern societies, it's a constant battle that one has to fight in order to be even somewhat healthy, right? To, evade these stark statistics that are basically inevitabilities for one who is in such a society. Of cancer, it's like one in three, I think, in the United Kingdom. It's probably 2 out of 3 people now, are predicted to get cancer in the United Kingdom at this point. And people's minds boggle at such a statistic. They think, oh, what the hell is going on? Why is there so much cancer? It's like, look around you, look what you're doing. Like, all these constant exposure to all these unnatural chemicals that you have absolutely no kind of like adaptivity to, no in terms of humans as a species, right? In terms of how the length of time that humans have been a species, and then the length of time that they've been exposed to these chemicals is like like a fraction of a second. And so there's no tolerance to these things, and there probably never would be any tolerance to these things because they're, in essence, basically just anti-life, right? You look at a pesticide, what does it, or an insecticide, what does it do? It kills life. It kills small life, so that that's sprayed on food, okay? So the food that you ingest that is contaminated with these pesticides, insecticides, right? The only reason it doesn't kill you immediately, because it still kills you in the long run, but not immediately, is just because you're a larger organism. And so there's a higher threshold. And it does over time accumulate and has all sorts of horrible effects upon various systems within the body. For sure. I can't quote you studies or whatever, and to be perfectly honest, I never needed any fucking studies to understand this, that exposing oneself to these chemicals, that at the actual time of exposure there is a like a visceral repulsion to that is what is experienced by myself when I'm in the vicinity of such chemicals. And I don't really understand why this isn't basically every other person's experience also. Like, I know that I shouldn't be around something like laundry detergent, because when I walk down an aisle in a grocery store, that infernal aisle where all those chemical products are that they call their layer, I feel basically ill. I start to have a headache, my nostril, like my sinuses burn from the exposure to it. It's just not a pleasant feeling to be around them. And yeah, so people like myself who have that kind of experience, who express that kind of experience and try to, I guess, sound the alarm, right? Being something of a canary in a coal mine, I guess, is a good analogy, right? People like myself who try to sound the alarm to others are just basically scoffed at, just mocked as being, as I said before, hypochondriacs or having an unrealistic ideal for human health. And yeah, so everyone else is just marching off a cliff, thinking that they're perfectly justified in doing so, and then wondering why they have such an unsavory demise at the end of that fall, which really shouldn't be any mystery. It really shouldn't be any mystery. And yeah, I don't really know what you can do. You can tell people, you can direct them to studies and so on, but yeah, you can't make someone understand something that they're not willing to understand. I don't necessarily see as an issue. I think also part of what I've seen as well when I've tried to express this to people, one perfect example of this actually, and I've seen this in numerous people who have basically, come across this idea. Well, it's not an idea, it's a fact, essentially. It's been scientifically, demonstrably shown, if that's your jam, right? That deodorants, antiperspirants specifically, I think, the aluminum content, which has been implicated in the development of Alzheimer's disease. I think it's Alzheimer's, or maybe it's Parkinson's. One of the two. I'm pretty sure it's Alzheimer's though, aluminum. Yeah, so the aluminum content in antiperspirants, obviously, implemented with Alzheimer's. People, come across this information, but they still basically say, well, what am I going to do? Am I just going to walk around smelling like shit and be sort of suffer this inevitable social ostracization as a consequence of that? I'm not going to be able to score chicks anymore and get my innings on the spoils of war or whatever the fuck. Just overall one's status and the social hierarchy being reduced, right? Perceiving that will be the case, not knowing that will be the case, perceiving that will be the case, assuming that will be the case. And so they just continue with this basically entirely detrimental habit because everyone else has consented to the same madness. So you wouldn't want to be the odd one out by being the sane one, the reasonable one. Oh no, how terrible. What will the insane people think of you? And yeah, that's just a good example of what I wanted to get at there. My point is that a large reason why oftentimes people will not concede that this all of these chemicals are toxic, cleaning chemicals, hygiene products, air fresheners, pure toxic garbage. The reason why they won't concede that it is so and seize their use of these things, is because of the social consequences. And man is a social species, and to be ostracized from the tribe means death on a evolutionary basis, right? And it's hardwired into us on a subconscious level to understand that this is going to be the case, blah blah blah, but it's really hard to respect someone that conducts himself in such a way. Yeah, I don't know. Some people will probably think I sound arrogant saying this, but whatever. It's I'm fairly confident that I'm right in this instance, and even if I'm not, yeah, whatever, I guess. It's just very sad and frustrating that people who do not choose to participate or perpetuate this madness must also suffer the consequences of it. Yeah, the whole food supply being contaminated, the air, the water being contaminated, the soil being contaminated. Everything is contaminated by industrial society. What is it? Even people in the far north, Inuit, right? In breast milk, people who've never been exposed directly to these incredibly toxic environments of like a developed city, say, as a sort of core terrain of this thing I'm talking about. People who've never stepped foot in any of that, who never eaten any of the foods of modern agriculture, etc., never taken pharmaceutical drugs and so on, never had any of the like injections, right? Samples of breast milk from these people has still shown traces of all manner of dioxins and so on. Whales, certain whales, right, in the, I guess, what would be considered to be pristine Arctic oceans. Basically every single toxin, right, that's known, or a large amount of them has been found within them. Yeah, really no way to get away from it. No way to get away from it. Yeah, I don't know what the solution is to that, right? I guess I've addressed maybe solutions elsewhere. And I thought I was largely over the anger part of responding to this, but I guess there's still some residue of it there, like a residue of glyphosate over the entire fucking planet. Yeah, okay. Thanks for listening.